Um, Welcome everyone to the first and last journey lecture of the winter semester and this academic year. And we are really delighted to have our dear friend and colleague, Professor Raghunathan. We fondly call him Raghu, as our lecturer today. And it is the tradition that one disciple of the speaker introduces the speaker. And Rod volunteered as Raghu's disciple.
Oh,
yeah, Raghu is much older than I am, so
to introduce Raghu. So, and I'm very happy to see all the friends of the department and many alums joining today. And it's a great connection, and many of you have been taught by Raghu, and also it's always good to see you as members of the department. So welcome. And I pass on the honor of introduction to Raghu's disciple, Professor Rod Little.
thank you very much, Brahma. So it's a great pleasure, and I'll keep it short, but I think we're all in for a big treat this afternoon. I've known Raghu for many years. I actually helped to recruit him to Michigan some time ago. I won't embarrass him by saying when, where he had a joint appointment between Biostat and Institute of Social Research, and he's proved to be a fantastic hire for the university, serving as chair of our department and also as the Survey Research Center director until quite recently. We're very happy to have him back in Biostat right now. I've always been struck with Raghu that he tackles sort of impossible problems in statistics that I wouldn't try and tackle myself, and manages to make a great headway with them. So has tremendous ingenuity as a statistician. As you'll learn, he also has a lot of other bows to his arrow. Is that right? Is that what I was saying? He's very so he has a lot of very diverse interests. Since he's in the department, he has to do some acting, of course. So he was. I always remember he was in our first skit that we did as a department. He was the local Swami who was who has magic potions, who would set the current chair, who should be nameless, right on the right path. So his statistics has similar kind of magic to it, I think so. And I above all, those of you who know him know that Raghu is just a wonderful person, just a gentleman, and a great person to work with, which I have been able to do on many occasions. We just finished another short course together last week. So anyway, over to Raghu, and you're going to love this.
I just also want to add that welcome to the Raghunathan family and Raghu's daughters, Dedika and Radhika. So welcome to the Biostatistics family. Have not seen you for a while. Thank you for joining.
okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I tell you, I stalled from giving this lecture to postpone your misery as much as possible. But our illustrious chair wouldn't let me and kept on persisting that, oh, give me a lecture, give me a lecture, give me a lecture. And finally, one short note, she said, we must have lecture. And I said, okay, ma'am, so let us have lecture. So this is a journey lecture. But I'm thankful, because not often that you get a chance to really reflect back on where you were and what you did and where you ended up and so on. So after thinking more about this journey lecture, I thought this is a journey of, okay, why this? I don't know why the screen would not move.
Raghu, if you try going down to the bottom left corner, does it give you like the forward arrows?
Oh, okay. So let me check. Okay, good. Let me do that. So after thinking about this, I thought that this is a journey of improbabilities. So because I think looking at my career, there are too many twists and turns, or all these things are really improbabilities. And I also thought that what should I do something unique about myself in the department? So I thought and thought, I think finally I came up with only one thing, that I have a longest name in the department. Then suddenly I got fear that I have another colleague who also has a very long name, Veerabhadran Baladandayudapani. I got really scared that I may be dethroned by that. I quickly counted his number of characters in his name. It is 30. And in my name is 31. So I am still the man with the longest, the faculty with the longest name in the department. Now, a lot of people ask me also, how come that you shorten your last name? Because everybody calls me Raghu, and then they see the Trivellore Raghunathan as my name. What is this? Is there something on the chat?
It's okay. Don't pay attention to the chat. If there are questions, we'll tell you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how come you are
saying it was okay? Vera just said it was okay that you have a long.
Okay. So how come you have shortened your last name? Because it is like Michael Benke having his name as Bo. You know, you don't normally shorten your last name. So typically in the where I come from, Tamil Nadu, and Veera knows about this, we don't have a convention of last name, middle name, first name. We have a name. So my name is Trivellore Raghunathan. My father was Trivellore Srinivasan. My grandfather was Trivellore Ranganathan. My great-great-grandfather was Trivellore Srinivasan. And like that, it goes on and on and on like that. So my cousin, who was a professor of Sanskrit, he did a lot of research on our family history, and he says that goes back a long way to the family history. And my great-grandfather on down, they were all sort of Tamil and Sanskrit scholars engaged in sort of a spiritual, religious, and administrative activities in various temples in what is called as a Tiruvallur district, which is a place near Chennai. This is near Madras or Chennai. There's a nice place called Tiruvallur, and that is where they were all engaged in the temple activities in that area. So then, of course, Tamil Nadu, if you have visited Tamil Nadu, you have seen that there aren't any big palaces built by kings. But the kings, they built a lot of temples. So temples were the central part of our culture. That's where our music, dance, drama, and education, spirituality, all of them took place. And it's interesting that if you look at the many Chinese travelers who went in the 6th to 12th centuries to India, crisscrossing various parts in search of Buddhist manuscripts to translate them, they comment on this aspect of temples being the central focus in many parts of Tamil Nadu. And the kings, they were really lived in a modest house. The only way the kings would be designated or differentiated by common man would be they would be carrying the staff. So it's kind of a interesting story about that philosophy and spirituality was part of this family history. Now, all the kings were gone by my grandfather's time British took over, and he was made a registrar in charge of all the temple properties. And in fact, my cousin goes back to somebody came called Ichambadi Srinivasan from an Ichambadi village, and that's where our lineage actually starts. So this is the ancestral temple in Trivellore. And next time, if you go to Chennai, make sure that you go and visit that temple. It's a beautiful temple. So I think my father said, well, I don't know what to do because all the businesses, our business ended because there was no temple business was available. So what did my father do? He studied finance and economics. Uh, didn't complete college, but for family reasons, because father died and he had to get a job, he migrated to Pune, and now it is called Pune in Maharashtra, and got married after India's independence and moved to Nagpur, which is a central part of India in Maharashtra, quite far away from his hometown. So Nagpur is a kind of an ancient city, and there is excavations there indicate that the settlements dating back to the 9th century BCE, and there are many ancient tribes. It used to be a capital of central provinces. One thing it is very famous for is for oranges. So if you go to Nagpur, always taste the orange, the best orange in the world. It's famous for cobra because the cobra is very common in that place, and then there is also a river shaped river in the shape of snake, and that's also very famous. That's where we were born. This is my mother and her sister. They were very close to each other. And this is a picture of them a few years later, just before my aunt, my mother's sister, passed away. And because of their close relationship, my father and my uncle also developed a very close relationship. Then they brought my grandmother and all my mother's siblings to Nagpur. My mother had a lot of siblings, and my grandfather, my mother's father, had died early. So they took on the responsibility of taking care of the family. So there's a big family, and in two earners, and we are a big family and lots of cousins and so on and so forth. And then many, in our household, many would be getting confused with whose child is whose. So we kind of grew up in that kind of a family tradition. This is a picture of my father and my mother, and I don't have very many old pictures of my father because 30 years ago we had a floods in Mumbai, and we lost many of our belongings in that, and then some of the old pictures were lost in that as well. So when I was born, this is my baby picture. I was about 8 or 9 months old. And you can see that I'm decorated well by my sisters. So I had two elder sisters, and they simply adored me, and I really adored them. So I grew up with those sisters, and you can see the semblance of all the mascaras and things that they whatever they did it on me also. So I so much so that I insisted on going to school with them when I was 3, and my older sister, my oldest sister was in the 5th grade, and my second sister had a way of getting out of these things, and she would weasel away. My older sister will always get caught up on those things. So I did go to the school. How do I know? Believe me, I know, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
And and my sister said, well, maybe a teacher would say no to me coming with her to the school. But did she know that my father had already talked to the teacher, and then and said, told the teacher that I think it's okay for 1 or 2 days he will come, and then after that he will lose interest. Anyway, I don't know how long I went, but I think according to my sister, I went for a long time. But I don't know, because so 5 years later, my sister is 5 years younger to me, younger sister. She became a child for all of us, and we grew up with a very tight knit siblings. Here is a picture of us. Now we call it ourselves as awesome foursome picture. Now, karma theory at work. So when I got to the 5th grade, the same teacher was there, and she remembered. I think a bit too well, she remembered. I think I probably exaggerated from my point of view. So she gave me a piece of paper with some words and asked me, how will you say if you were a king? And I said something like, make a posture of a king, and then said something. And another piece of paper with some words, she asked, how will you say if you were a beggar? I said, come and see me during the recess. Thus began my acting career in the school. And we used to have annual days. And then during the annual day, we will have all these drama and plays. And I was always part of that play. So here is a picture of me playing the role of, I think this was maybe 8th or 9th grade, maybe, or 10th grade. I was playing the role of Alexander the Great. The plot was about the battle with King Porus. So here I am playing the part of Alexander wearing all the stuff, and then it was all a story about how that was the last battle that Alexander had, and then he had to return back. The story is that that battle changed, but I don't think that is true, because he was tired and his troops were tired, so they wanted to go back. So that was my acting debut, and the 5th grade on, I have been acting in several plays. What about academics? I talked about. So I was really loved mathematics, history, and philosophy, and I think philosophy must be because of my genetic predisposition, maybe. So tolerated physics, but was good at it, but I won't say it was a very favorite. Chemistry was no for me. Zoology, out of the question. So because I vomited every time a frog was dissected. And I will go to the class, they will dissect a frog, I will vomit. And I remember the teacher begging me, saying that, please don't come. And this zoology is not a subject for you. And therefore, I think my hope of becoming a doctor was dashed then and there, because zoology is one of the most important topics that I have to study if I want to be a doctor. So I could never become a doctor. So I loved mathematics, history, and philosophy, tolerated physics, but I had to put up with chemistry, but I didn't really like chemistry at all. So after this is my school, and I didn't have much money for going to any fancy colleges, because we had a huge family and not that much of money left. So I got a government scholarship if admitted to the government-run Institute of Science. There's something called Institute of Science. But most important thing was also free books. So I got all free books. So the Institute of Science, there are 3 institutes of sciences, one in Bombay, one in Nagpur, and the other one is in Aurangabad. And these 3 institutes are famous, and then this is a picture of Institute of Science in Nagpur. It's a very beautiful building, a beautiful campus, lots and lots of tall ceilings, a beautiful architecture built in the British era. I had to take 3 subjects. So most common was physics, chemistry, and mathematics. And I was saying how to avoid chemistry. And somebody said something. I said, wait, tell me again. What? How can I avoid chemistry? He said, to avoid chemistry, you could take physics, mathematics, and statistics. I had no idea what statistics was about. All I had heard was during the cricket commentaries that Vijay Merchant was one of the commentators. He would reel out some statistics about the scores and overs and balls and wickets and so on and so forth. And that was the only statistics knowledge I had. I took physics. I said, my dislike for chemistry was so much that I said, okay, statistics is fine. Let me take physics, mathematics, and statistics, and turned out to be the best decision ever. So just by accident, I became statistician. Now, this Department of Statistics is very interesting. It was founded by Dr. Shrikande in 1955. He was trained in UNC Chapel Hill under R.C. Bose. So he had a very strong vision about what the Department of Statistics should look like. So he had a very strong component of design of experiments. So we had to take lots of courses on design of experiment. For 3 years, Godambe was the chair of the department in that Institute of Science. So he brought a lot of sample surveys into the mix. There was this person called A.B. Buche. He was trained under Kolmogorov and others in Moscow, and he obtained his PhD from Wayne State University under Barucha Reed. Very strong probability theory, stochastic process, and theoretical statistics. And these people also were in constant touch with Mahalanobis. And it had its influence in developing the Department of Statistics here, official statistics, demography, agricultural statistics, and so on. So there are lots of others also had a lot of influence. Especially I want to mention about this Miss Hege. She became later Swamini Gayananda. She became a monk and as a Swamini Gayananda. She's one of the earliest PhDs under Godambe, and she played a very pivotal role in not only in my statistics life, but also in my philosophy life as well, the spiritual life as well. There were lots of others who played a big important role in developing the Department of Statistics, like V.M. Joshi, and then our own Shirsagar, who was in Bombay University at that time, also played a very big important role. And J.V. Deshpande and Huzur Bazar, Huzur Bazar theorem insufficiency, Sukhatme, the big sampling survey statistician, and he was also playing a big important role. So it was a wonderful environment. Although these people were not there when I went there, when I joined the department, but their influence was there. Their courses and their training were all there, and it was a very great department. It was a great turning point for me. Although I entered not knowing what statistics was, but these influential people had shaped the department for me to really learn a lot about the in the department. So I got a bachelor's and master's, best time in the department, great teachers, and I joined the department as a lecturer after graduation. But my acting career continued. So I was continuing my acting even beyond the college, and here I think I was playing a role of a person trying to convince a mother of a girl that I am suited for her daughter. So a very formidable woman. She's not. She's very skeptical of me. So the acting career sort of continued, and also learning music also continued. So over the years, I played very different roles. I also started doing my research. There was this person called Karaday, a very interesting person. He's a physicist, mathematician, and also a social worker. He's mostly known for relativity, research on relativity. He became a mentor for research and social work. So interestingly, he would conduct, he sort of, not unlike this place we have, is that there were a lot of inequities in the schools. So some schools are very good in giving education. Some schools were not that good in giving education. So what he organized was he organized different locations where there was poor neighborhoods. He will go and develop the classes for children in the high school. They will be taught physics, mathematics, chemistry, and English. Those are the four subjects he would organize classes there to bring them up to the level comparable to some of these very high good schools. So I used to teach in that program. I used to teach mathematics in that program, and on evenings and weekends. And that was my first foray into sort of a social work. And he also became a mentor for research. The other person also became a mentor for Buche, and we used to go for math walks. So one of the things that he loved, as when he was in Moscow, he would go on a long walks with Kolmogorov and Skorohod and Nedenko and all these people. And the students together, they would go for a long walk. And only thing is that they have to talk only about math. There's nothing else you can talk about. Math. And then they come back. When they come back, they will prove a lot of theorems and write down all the discussions they had. So he loved that format. So poor him. So he had just me as a only student. So we will go for a math walk. We two will go for a long walk, but no theorem came back. There was no theorem when we returned. So he was very disappointed. But I think, we got some improvement in my knowledge. So I started working on stochastic process more broadly as my research topic. This was my first ever paper published in 1980 on what is called as on a generalized queuing model. And I was completely surprised that this journal is subscribed by the University of Michigan. So I could find this in the University of Michigan, I could find this little article that was published in 1980 on a generalized queuing model. So the life was going really good. So I had a job, I had my acting career, I had my music, I had my research, and it was all going so good. This is a picture of all my professors who were still there. We had a 50th anniversary celebration in 2005. So I was so happy to see Swamini Gayananda, who came for the celebration. And this guy, Pangarkar, was my buddy when I was there. And I was so happy to see. One thing I was totally surprised is that when I went back to the department in 2005, all the faculty were my students. There was not a single person who was not my student, and they were all there in the department. So I was so happy to see that department flourishing. So I was happy, but then came the shock to the system. So the lecturer position that I was in was deemed as a temporary because it has not gone through Public Service Commission. There was something that we had a bureaucratic setup that we had to go through. So it wasn't gone through. Therefore, in a one stroke, they say it is temporary. And they also had this rule that no one can hold temporary position for more than 12 months. I had finished just 11 months when they realized this. Immediately, I got terminated. But they still needed me. And therefore, they said, okay, we'll give you some gap and then we'll rehire you. And somebody told them that if you have to rehire, you have to re-interview. So terminated, re-interviewed, rehired. After some gap, terminated, re-interviewed, rehired. Then again, terminated, re-interviewed, rehired, and went on like that. And Diwali is a big festival for us. And you get a 1 month holiday for that Diwali. The day before Diwali, you get terminated. And that is considered to be a very, very bad thing. That on a Diwali day, you are getting terminated. And then after Diwali, you have to be re-interviewed and rehired. It was going really bad. I don't know what to do. So I did some consulting and tutoring in order to keep up my salary level because I was terminated with all these gaps. I didn't know what I do. And this was my first consulting experience. So I thought that I've talked about this in my Bayesian class. So there were over 3 or 4 years senior to me. Remember, the 3 or 4 years senior to me, and then he had passed this IAS exam, which is Administrative Service exam. He was posted to some big position. He came to me with this. I think after lots of dialogue, after back and forth, this is what he asked me. Can you design a study to show that based on the data, the chances of the population proportion exceeding 30% is at least 90%? If you remember in the history, there was not a single peep about Bayes. Never heard Bayes, except Bayes' theorem. And then even that Bayes' theorem, as an undergraduate, I said, this is just simple algebra of expressing one conditional probability in terms of other conditional probability. What is so theorem about that? So we had no idea about Bayes, and this question was asked. And I always had this feeling that the population proportion is either 30% or not 30%. What do you mean? Chances of population proportion exceeding 30%. So I went to my instructor and then said, "What? This is a question." He said, "Oh," she laughed. She said, "Oh, that's not the right question to ask." I said, "Why? What do you mean right question to ask?" He said, "That's a Bayesian question, and that's not meaningful." So, but inherently, I thought this was a very meaningful question to ask. And how come that I can't ask this question? This is a very, very good question to ask. So that I kind of, that was a shocker for me. So I started reading on my own, something on the Bayesian method. So once I knew, I tell you, one of the best writers that I have seen in the Bayesian analysis is Dennis Lindley. And he has a 2-book, Probability and Inference, masterpieces. And I read a lot of his work on Dennis Lindley's work early on when I was trying to find a solution to this problem. So I didn't tell anybody, but I was becoming a closet Bayesian. So because I was reading up lots on the Bayesian stuff. And then the other question that came up was in very interesting question that I was also tested my administrative skills. So I don't know how much time I had. I don't want to tell too much stories. So the weights of the same animal measured over this was a project there was a Chandrapur district. There's a Chanda, huge forest there. So there was animal population was growing so much that they had to really cull the animals, but they don't want to cull the young animals. So they need to weigh them, and then they would weigh the animals and then let them loose, and they will tag them. But those were not radio transmitter tags, but they were kind of a manual tags. And then the tags will fall off. Many times they will weigh the same animal again. They will either catch the same animal and then they weigh again. The weight will be drastically different between the first and second. So they asked me, so what should I do? And I'm proud of that achievement. What I did there is that, and I made them I made them to carry bunch of stones. And every time they measured the animal, I said, measure the stone. And that was the way I said, okay, measure the stone every time you measure the animal. And I did that also because there were 2 groups. They rented this truck, and there were 2 groups fighting with each other because they hired this truck guy, and the other truck guy was very unhappy. So I said, okay, hire that other truck guy, let him carry the stones. So this was simple regression analysis. I was very proud of the administrative skill as well, because he said, oh, I really made both of them happy and solved this particular problem. So anyway, so this thing was happening, and I didn't know what all the uncertainties. Then this guy came. And you may recognize this guy because this guy played a role in Kathy Spino's life as well. So the rescue was this Vasant Vaiker from Oxford, Ohio. And a very close friend of mine since school days is his nephew. And he had come to visit Nagpur. He's a former student of Institute of Science also. He came for giving talk and spend some sabbatical. I started working with him also, what is called as a testimators. So you take a preliminary sample, test the hypothesis about the prior knowledge. If the prior is acceptable, then you take the linear combinations of those. If not, then throw away the prior and take another sample and then take the pooled sample. So I was helping deriving some mean square properties and so on and so forth. So it was very happy. He said, why don't you come to Oxford, Ohio, and come to Miami University, and they had only master's program. You just do a master's there and then see what you want to do later on. Why are you really stuck in this one? And then he wasn't really happy about my research either. He says, a stochastic process, this looks like very theory. It's not statistics. It's all mathematics. And I didn't. Then that brought me from Nagpur to Oxford, Ohio, just because of that person. I owe everything to him, who really diligently worked to bring me up to Nagpur to Oxford, Ohio. No matter what people say, nothing prepares you to come from Nagpur to Oxford, Ohio. People may describe things and people may say things. They will give you pictures. Nothing prepares you to Oxford, Ohio. Well, I had a great group of friends though, and very welcoming, and classmates were very nice. And and I would say that they used to have these math classes uh, where students will come and do homework in these huge auditoriums, and then you just go around and then talk to people and then see whether they have any questions and help them. So I loved it. I really enjoyed it because I was there for only 1 year, did my master's there. That's where I learned to use computer for the first time in my life. I've never seen a computer before. And Don Weber, I think Kathy Spino might remember him also, used a computer for the first time. So he was teaching me a linear models course. He assigned me a computer assignment. I had no idea. So I went and talked to him. I said, I have no idea. I have never used a computer. Can you suggest something that I can read? And he said, he got up. He always wore a tie and he was very proper all the time. Yes, he got up and took out these two big SAS manuals. At that time, the SAS manuals were only two, base and stats. He gave me the two manuals. He said, these two books will give you everything you want to know about computer. I went back and read it. That's the time I realized that these manuals are written for those people who don't need it. And it is written for those people who need it. It's not written for those people who need it. Anyway, so I somehow learned the ropes and got the computer working. And I wasn't sure whether the answer was right. This was like a 5 predictors and 1 outcome variable regression analysis. So, but I knew how to do it by hand. So I taped the pieces of paper, and then I did a 6x6 matrix, and I used the abbreviated Doolittle method, and which is kind of a fancy sweep operations. Did all the hand calculation, made sure that my point estimates were same as in the computer output. I made a mistake in writing in my homework that this is the computer output I got. And then I said that I verified this computer output using the abbreviated Doolittle method, and I got the same answer. And when he was grading, those days, when he was grading that homework, he read it. He couldn't contain it. He came out of his office. He said, I don't believe this. And everybody came out of the office and they said, what happened? What happened? I have seen people who would verify their hand calculations on computer. And I have never seen anybody who verifies the computer calculations using hand calculator. And so that was the first thing I used in the computer. But then I think I got really, very much interested in computing. And I can't believe that I hadn't seen the computer, but now I think if I see that, so it's just amazing how, what kind of opportunities that Oxford gave me in my career. Well, Oxford to Cambridge, so from Ohio to Massachusetts. It's not MA. So because why did I apply to Harvard? Because as I told you that in the Oxford, Ohio, During the Thanksgiving, everybody's gone. During the Christmas vacation, everybody is gone. You are the only one walking. Or if you see another person walking, that must be a Chinese foreign student or Indian foreign student. There's no one else would be there. So I read up a lot about on the Bayesian analysis. I read a lot about Dempster's work. So that's why I kind of applied that to Harvard, and I didn't know that they will never accept me. And the other two places where I got in was Iowa State University and Florida State University, and also University of Florida. And statisticians in my department were pushing me to Iowa State or Florida State or University of Florida because that's a safe place for me. And mathematicians in the department were pushing me towards Harvard because I don't know why, but I think they were pushing me for that one. Anyway, I got a call from Dempster. I was thrilled. And then I got a call from Dempster saying that he has admitted, and I got admission. And Art Dempster is sort of gave me a complete foundations on probability and statistics. And I was taking his course, and we would have a joint course between biostat and stat, and I was the only one taking the stat. So he will drive me to the class, across the river, the Harvard Biostat department. While coming back, he will take me through all these nooks and corners of Cambridge, giving me history lessons. He knew that I was a history buff, so he will give me all the history lessons. And we talk about these foundations of probability and statistics. And that was a complete conversion took place of being a Bayesian inference for me. I also taught for Fred Mosteller, and every semester he would say that you have to teach with me. I was his teaching assistant for every semester he taught. The last year of my at Harvard, I took responsibility of teaching on my own. I try to imitate him as much as I can. So he was a great teacher and best mentoring for teaching. Of course, my destiny. Don Rubin, when he came, and that was I thought that is actually I was meant to be at Harvard because of meeting him. So great group of friends, Schenker, Carlin, Weld, Gelman, Belin, Zaslowski, Schaefer, Meng, you can list all goes on and on, all-star statistician team during my Harvard days. And dissertation committee was Rubin, Dempster, Laird. And my dissertation was really very complicated in some sense. I was trying to really rigorously prove certain things about the repeated sampling properties of multiple reputation inferences, and with as rigorous as theoretical proof as well. So anyway, so it was a great experience in that one. It was a slow convergence, just like EM algorithm. So because they came from a very different perspective, and I will go to Rubin, I'll get some instructions, I'll go to Dempster, I'll get another restrictions, another, and they go to Nan Laird, she'll give me another one, and then went on and on and on and on and on. And I thought that I may not even graduate. I will happily be Harvard stat graduate even to this day, but eventually anyway. So everything settled and graduated and ready to fly. And I also revived my acting career and music career in Boston, so in Cambridge. So I acted in several plays as well, and I started singing in Carnatic music there also. Was time passed. 4 years later, ready to fly. I had the two options. of a job at Cornell University in ILR or Seattle, Washington. And Martin Wells, who is in Cornell University, and I had a situation where if I had taken a Cornell job, he would have taken the Seattle job. If I had taken the Seattle job, he would take the Cornell job. So eventually I took the Seattle job. He took the Cornell job. Every time I see him on any of the panel meetings or in the JSM, he says, "Thank you. Thank you." So he loved Cornell University. Some of when I went to Ithaca, it's coming from Boston, coming from Nagpur. It resembled, too small a place for me at that time. So no acting, nothing I can do there. So anyway, so I went to Cambridge, Massachusetts, to Seattle, Washington. There, I had a best mentor was David Suskovic. He's a best collaborator, mentor, who's a cardiovascular epidemiologist. I started working with him, and I have several papers with him on missing data and combining information from multiple studies and so on. Finally, chemistry caught up with me. It was all about polyunsaturated, polysaturated, monosaturated, trans fatty acids, all those chemistries. I left that chemistry. I thought that I'd forgotten all the chemistry, but it came back with sort of a vengeance that I had to learn some of these chemistry concepts in order to really be heavily involved in that project. So I left chemistry, I thought, but chemistry didn't think. Chemistry had the last laugh at me. I also had a great mentor, Jim Grizzle and Barbara Grizzle. They considered me as their fourth child because their youngest child is 1 year older than me, 1 month older than me. So I was a fourth child. And he's the one who really asked me to really work on the split questionnaire design, because this was, I was put in the project where it was telephone survey. They would call, they recruited 2 people from the household, husband and wife. And then when we reach husband will interview, but warn the wife, and then wife will say no. Or if you interview the wife, they warn the husband, she will warn the husband will say no. So we had all these orphan cases which we had a problem with. So we developed this, what is called as a split questionnaire design, where we are not asking every question on everybody. So great group of students, and then students were wonderful there. So they put a lot of pranks on me. So I will give them all these different stories, and then one of the example I will give them a cow example. Somehow they liked that cow example. Here also, I think that somebody was telling me that I gave them a cow example. So the cow example. So one day I open my door, and there's all these cowbells started ringing in my office because they tied all these cowbells. And then when I opened the door, it suddenly started ringing all those. And then I had string lights, cow string lights, and so on. So a great group of friends, but a very lonely Bayesian in the department. Everybody was non-parametricians there, and it was very hard in a being a lonely department. Then another person that I really worked very short was Donovan Thompson of the Horwitz-Thompson estimator. That Thompson, who was in Seattle at that time, very nice gentleman. I replaced him in terms of for every sampling questions. I was the one who would be doing all the sampling questions. A lot of wonderful things happened there because I was most productive acting years and music. Here I was playing a role on the left. I was playing a role of a husband who is completely subservient to his wife. And alien comes from abroad, comes from somewhere to learn about our ways of living. And this poor guy, the alien is only visible to this guy, and it's not visible to anybody else. So it's just a comedy, and that was a nice play that we were putting there. And this role on the right, I was playing a role of a villain, and this was a play also in English. We translated also in English. And one lady came in that role. I think I ultimately at the end I die. And then one lady came to me, says that, I don't know, I felt like coming and strangling you. And I said, oh, that's a good sign. So I was very happy to know that. And then she laughed at me. She said, I don't think anybody would have liked being strangled. And I said, yeah, okay. So I was also trying to become a farmer, Jim Grissell's help. You can see that I'm not a good farmer because I'm maintaining that healthy distance from the horse. And then he took me to this manure spreader, and then he has this caption on that, the latest in the teaching aid, North Carolina teaching aids, manure spreader, because he used to kid me for all these multiple imputation I was doing. He says that, what is this multiple imputation? You're spreading some manure. So anyway, so I had a great time in Seattle. Wonderful thing happened in Seattle. Finally, somebody to set me right, got married. That too with a beautiful smile. And we got married in her hometown in Madurai. And later on, we found out that our marriage video was filled with all these Swedish strangers. So I was standing outside this place where the wedding was going to take place. And there were about 25 people were Swedish tourists. They were passing by. They asked me, who is getting married? I said, I'm getting married. So they asked me, can we come and see the wedding? And there were going to be thousands of people there, and 20 more doesn't matter. So I said, yeah, come on in tomorrow. And then this is the time you have to be there. And they all came, and I forgot to tell my family, and also I forgot to tell Geeta's brothers, saying that these people will be coming. They are strangers, they're coming. So they all came dressed up nicely. 25 of them sat in the front. The videographer thought that they are my friends or Geeta's friends. They are from US. Half the video is only them. They are standing up, they are sitting down, they are eating, they're walking, and total strangers in that video. Another wonderful thing happened was my oldest daughter was born there. She's in 92. And also there's an important message for me from Bob Groves from University of Michigan. And he called me twice on that day. The first time is at 12:35. And the other one was 2:53. How do I know 2:53? Because Barbara Jensen is a secretary in the department. She was very particular in writing nearest to the minute, the time that we got the call. So she would write always like 12:32 or 12:33 or something like that. So she's nearest minute. So I had no idea who Bob Groves was. And I saw that conversation with Don Rubin. I said, okay, I gave a call. And anybody who knows Bob Groves is such a visionary. He started telling me about creation of the new program called Survey Methodology Program at the Institute for Social Research. And I should come and should become a faculty here and so on and so forth. And then when I talked to Don Rubin said, something very, very important is happening in University of Michigan, and you should definitely go there. So I went back and told this whole story to Geeta, And Geeta said, no matter what, we are going to Michigan. A call on the auspicious day, on the day my daughter was born, we are going to go there. Let's see. First, let me get offer, and then Rod and Bob Groves worked their magic. And I got an offer, and I moved to University of Michigan. Seattle, Washington to University of Michigan. Oh, so many collaborators, so wonderful, so many students, so much joy. My second daughter was born in Ann Arbor, and so much fun. So Chinmaya Mission Ann Arbor, that's where I started teaching spiritual classes, continued my music, philosophy and spiritual journey continues to this day. Thought I was done with my acting play, but this guy wouldn't let me. And he came up with all these plays and skits that I had to really act, made me again actor again. I thought that after Seattle, I thought I was done with that one. And also my destiny was complete with joining with Rod Little. Started with Don Rubin, ending up with Rod Little as my master, as my mentor. Is pretty good life, actually. So I was thinking about what I should talk, what I should express, how should I describe my journey? Is that the mountain of gratitudes. I have so many people to thank, and so many people who have helped me along to grow to where I am. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Raghu. I'm speechless. Initially, I was getting choked because you're such a masterful storyteller, but I have to, and anybody who wants to unmute and share a clap, please do, because Zoom cannot do justice to this story, and I feel very confined. So please do so. And what a spectacular journey. And we are really, really, really fortunate to have you as a part of our community. And as often your sage advice, your counsel, it has been tremendous for this department and its mentors, so members. So any questions? I just open up the floor to students, faculty, staff, who are all on the call. I have my own questions, but I'll give the chance to others first. All right, so I want to ask you a little bit about, you could probably see that coming, that how was it being a chair of the department? And what are your thoughts, reflection, and milestones, accomplishments, striking work-life balance at the time, and how did you figure out your next step?
Well, I wasn't actually expecting to be asked to be the chair of the department. And actually, I was a bit surprised when they asked me to consider to be the chair. But being a chair of our department is fairly easy. It's a very collegial, cohesive group. And people love this department, and it was not that hard to be the for me. I think it's not that hard. It wasn't hard, and I think having a sage advice from people like Rod helped a lot. And I still remember one time I had a very complicated, he doesn't remember that, but I had a very complicated problem. I went to him and asked him, and then I thought that he would give me a solution. And he says, his own style, he says, sounds complicated. And you are the chair. And then I knew that I'm not going to get any solution, but I had to find solution on my own. And that's what I think is and being a chair, you become an advocate for the department, and I think in the school, I think I went to bat, and I said that I thought that we really needed big computing section. And in my own life, I think I started with not knowing anything about computing and ended up with sort of a huge computing component in my research and huge computing aspects in my career. And I thought that computing is a very, very important component. So I would say that that's what I was sort of aiming at. And also I thought that there was we were teaching all these service courses. We have to have a GSI slots for those things. So I struck a deal in getting that more GSI slots. And I think that school. Dean Smith was the associate dean. He was a great, because he was an economist, and you could make an economics argument with him, and he will buy it. So I was, my father was an accountant, and in the summer he would give me all these balance sheets and ledgers and journals, and I knew about the finances quite a bit, and so I would create my own spreadsheets. So and I will go to the dean's office with that spreadsheet, with my own spreadsheet, and I remember Mike Kalsinski would say that, "Oh, how did you get this? Where did you get this information?" I said, "I can make it. It's not a." But he was good in terms of grudgingly he would accept. That school was very supportive also. The department was very friendly department. So
yeah. Thank you. Others, you can unmute yourself or you can use the chat function.
So I had a similar question, Raghu,
yeah.
to Mars. First of all, congrats on winning the name challenge. I thought I'll add MS and PhD to my name, but Drang, you have double masters, so
yeah, that won't work.
so that won't work.
He has 31, which is a prime number of letters. So
I have to get a middle name now for one letter. So actually, I've seen your orthogonal life too, in your teaching at the Sunday schools and the spiritual schools. And for those of you who don't know, my kids are Raghu's pupils, and his daughters actually, teach my boys. And I've always wondered, and I meant to ask you one-on-one, but maybe I'll ask you now in your journey lecture. How would you, because you are teaching that that school like pretty much all weekend, and I've known you going Ann Arbor, Troy, all over, and maintaining being a former chair of the department, maintaining a research program, teaching. How do you maintain the balance? And I always meant to ask you.
Well, I don't know that I'm doing anything good. So maybe I think I'm averaging. That's where I think I'm maintaining that being average. But I think in a sense, I think you have to compartmentalize. So I think that's the idea of compartmentalizing yourself. So when you are an administrator, and be administrator, and when you are a researcher, be a researcher, and when you are teaching your Sunday school, be a teacher in that Sunday school. So not dissipate your sort of thought process from one to the other. And that, I think, helps me a lot, and having a good staff for you when you are in an administrative role is very important. And Don Reed, who was a chair, was executive secretary for a chair, and who was also executive secretary when I was director of the Survey Research Center. She was very good at that, sort of protecting the time, and that helped me a lot. So I think compartmentalizing it and making sure that you are really focused on the task in hand, because otherwise we can get distracted. So when you are doing your research, suddenly you get a thought about something else, and that's kind of takes you away from that one. So I think I tend to sort of compartmentalize it. Things can wait. It's that, I'm not that, anything that is not that important that immediately needs attention. The only thing that needs attention is that when you get an angry email from somebody, on a Friday, you want to send an email to them, not anything about it. It says, I hear you, I understand you, let us talk about it on Monday. And once you do that, their thought process itself is arrested, and your thought process is also arrested. And that way they are calm, and they say, okay, now I think he knows, and we'll talk about this later. These are some of the simple things, and compartmentalizing it, and then being judicious about what to reply, when to reply, helps.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks, Raghu.
Raghu, nice talk. Very nice talk. I was wondering how much you were influenced by Bob Groves at ISR, since I mean, he has a very focused sort of attitude towards administration, I think. Did he help you at all?
Yes,
on the administrative side.
Yes, I think
yeah, not everybody might know this, but Bob became the Census Bureau director and is now the provost at Georgetown.
I think with Bob, I think it was really the visionaries, and the vision, the way he could express the idea in such a grand terms was extremely helpful for me to really think about SMP and think about SRC in my own administrative role in that one, as a facilitator of doing good science. And that's the role of the chair, and that's the role of the SRC director, is that you are only facilitating people who can do good science. And you yourself do good science, let others also do good science, and do whatever you do is think about that, facilitating that aspects of it. And with teaching, I think, Bob Groves and I taught a course because he was coming from this perspective of response propensity, and he would always talk about the response propensities and explaining people who are responding versus not responding. And I said I have no idea why people respond and why people don't respond. I used to tell him this big story about, there was this guy called John, and he broke up with his girlfriend, and then he was very sad. And then there was a knock on the door, and the door opened. There was this nice old guy asking that, I'm from University of Michigan Survey Research Center. I want to interview you. And then this John was so sad that he broke up with his girlfriend. He said he wanted somebody to talk to. He asked that John to come inside room, and then they started having a dialogue. And then he started writing the interviewing, and the phone rang, and he said, "Excuse me," and then he took the phone, and then he heard sobbing, and it was his ex-girlfriend. She was sobbing. She said, "I made a mistake. You know, I think we need to patch up again. We need to give a second chance." Now suddenly this interviewer became a nuisance because he wanted to go and meet his girlfriend now. So he said that you have to get out of this place. I have a very, very important thing. This interviewer pleaded, "Please, please, I want to complete this interview." He said that, no, you come back next week. And he shut him off and then went back to his girlfriend. And girlfriend said, "We need to really patch up. You need to move in with me." And him back, packed everything, forgot about this appointment he had given to the interviewer, and he went and settled in with the girlfriend. It's his girlfriend now. And this guy, interviewer, came, knocked on the door, knocked on the door, knocked on the door. There's no answer. Nobody knew where he was. You know what? Just about that time that call came, he was going to ask about income. Now, income is missing. Now, what is the mechanism for income missing? There's no way you can model any of these issues in terms of. So what you need is adjustment. You need a covariate that you can use in order to. So after this dialogue, we said that, okay, we'll organize a course on this topic. So Bob Gross and I gave a course, and we couldn't find any date on which at any time that we could give during the weekday. So we registered it as a Friday course, but gave it on Saturday morning for breakfast. I tell you, that was the best course I ever taught with Bob Gross. And slowly I think we made it as a Z club, because a Z club is the third variable that you need, which is correlated with the response propensity, and also it is correlated with the outcome variable. The goal is really the adjustment, not really worry about what actually the process. That process might be useful, but I don't think that is, you can really concrete ways in which you can say what the process is. And so working with Bob was fantastic in that respect. And he was a visionary. So he quickly, he would, he's a great guy to work with.
Thanks so much, Raghu. Other questions?
Raghu, Jeremy. So I remember many years ago when Ann Arbor had a newspaper, the Ann Arbor News. I remember seeing a picture of you in there, I think, with you were hosing down some kids at your summer camp, where you're a spiritual leader with a hose pipe and getting them very wet. I don't know if they'd been bad or good. So my question is, did you ever feel like doing that to your students or your colleagues while you were there?
Yeah, well, I think if they are, I would say that I think every one of us has kid in our heart, and once in a while we should wake up that kid, and that kid can have a complete joy, and that's the whole goal of that hosing, was to bring kid in me playing with the kid in other. So it doesn't matter whether how old are you or how young you are, that once in a while, bringing out the kid in you is very refreshing.
So I have a story about that, just an anecdotal story, that my daughter was one of the kids whom Raghu was sprinkling the water. She was in this summer camp. And then she, she did not know that Raghu and I worked together. And then when Raghu became chair, we were invited to his house for a party. And then she said, that mean uncle from the summer camp is your chair? I have no place to go. So the Raghu was the mean uncle who was coating them with water. So it's all related. We also have a mountain of gratitude to you, Raghu, for all the different things that you have brought to the department. Elizabeth, please, you just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. So Raghu, this is Elizabeth, long time ago, alumna. But I was thinking when you started by speaking about why is Raghu short for your surname and not your first, but then you gave a history of your father's name and your grandfather's name. And so going back, and if you look at that, the nomenclature is rather like, or the naming pattern is rather like the first names are surnames to most English names or European names, where the place of origin becomes the surname and the first name is the one that changes over time. So I was rather curious, is there such a naming pattern? Or really, are you not named, having a nickname of your first name in a way?
Yeah, so I think actually Raghunathan is my first name. That's a given name for me. Trivellore is a name of the ancestral place from which we come from. Ichambadi is also an ancestral place. It was a village from which our original person, and he has traced it back to something like 937. And then he says that there is some evidence that that person was a big shot in the Tirupati temple. There's a big temple in Tirupati, and there are some stone inscriptions talking about him in that temple. So both of them are sort of a place for us. Now, the why we became Raghunathan became a last name, Srinivasan became a last name, is that when my father migrated to Pune, Maharashtra, there they have a convention of the first name, last name, and first name, middle name, last name. So he was asked, what is your name? He said, Trivellore Ichambadi Srinivasan. And there were 3 names there. So he said, okay, I'm going to the first name as a first word as your first name, the second word as your middle name, and the last word as your last name. And that's the way it became. So
it
is very much like
really within your own family, not very far back.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any other questions? I had a last question. I was very intrigued by Miss Hegde. And at that time in Indian mathematical statistics community, there were not too many women professors. And even when I was studying, there were not too many women professors. And can you share a little bit about her and how she was this iconic figure in that institute and influenced you?
Yeah, so I think the credit goes to Godambe. And Godambe recruited as many students as and he was very much interested in recruiting very diverse group of people in statistics. So she from mathematics, she was recruited into statistics, and she started working with him. And believe it or not, her first paper was in 1965, and it was very unique in that respect. I think even Srikhande was very, very unique in that respect. And he just died last year at the age of 103. And he was a very tall, imposing figure. And it was always And I remember, I think my master's thesis was alternative proof for Euler's conjecture, which is what he's famous for, is that he disproved the Euler's conjecture that orthogonal lattice.
Yeah.
Euler's, yeah. So so my thesis was really on a shorter alternative proof using Galois field theory to show that it is that the same proof, same results with a different proof. And I gave a presentation to him. I was shocked. I was scared like anything, you know. And he was a tall, imposing figure. So, but he was also very much interested in bringing women. In my classmate, there were only 4 men, 16 women in our classmate. So somehow I think women were more in statistics that time. But I think Hege was really a trendsetter in that respect.
Thank you.
And wonderful person, just a wonderful person, you know. And many times I think we will be talking more about philosophy than statistics. And chair of the department one day he came out, he said, I'm getting confused whether this is a department of philosophy or department of statistics.
That's not necessarily probably a bad thing, because there's a lot of similarities in explaining natural phenomena.
Oh yeah. I think philosophy is very important, as absolutely critical in terms of understanding about our subject.
Yes. So I think we are at the top of the hour, 1 minute left. We sent you a little bit of a appreciation, a goodie basket. You'll receive.
Yes, I got that.
But it's not for you. It's really for Geeta ji. Because behind the success of every man, as we know, that the support of the whole family. So it's really for the family to enjoy. But I want to share my screen to show the tribute that we usually give you if you are in person. It's a certificate of tribute. This is more precious than all of your awards. It doesn't come with any money, but we, in appreciation of all your contributions to our department, to our community, the values that you bring, what you represent, Raghu, and for sharing your journey with us this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all coming. And I was very ambivalent about this, but I think it turned out to go okay. So I enjoyed it.
It was a great lecture. You are a phenomenal person and your stories are wonderful. And we can see why acting was your second career. The storytelling and the engagement was just fabulous. And coming from a family of acting, I just really, really appreciated it. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.